Welcome back everyone. Let's go ahead and start up these late 2021 reviews, comparisons, all that good stuff. Actually just reviews this time around. And there's been so many devices, so many craziness that's pretty much been happening the last, month or two. But we have to rewind it back to where we started. And let's go and talk about the iPhone 6s and see how it holds up in the later part of 2021. Now, so many things of this phone have changed. I can't believe the amount of, capability that this phone still has. And I will tell you, although this phone, has a purpose, I think it brought a lot to the table when it first came out. And I do think it was one of the biggest upgrades Apple ever put onto an iPhone like this. I don't really think it's worth picking up as of this moment. I know it's kind of sad to say. I think it, means a lot. And I think there's some merit to it being the oldest supported iPhone. But I don't necessarily think, if you have it, good for you. But I wouldn't recommend anybody buying this phone anymore. I would recommend at least starting off with something like an iPhone 7 Plus or 7. Since those things are probably going to get the next version of software. Now, things that have changed within the last, year of me owning this device, we got a new iOS version, we got new iPhones, we even got new iPads and MacBooks, which is pretty crazy. But those two things, the new iPhones and new iOS versions, impact these phones, even the iPhone 6s, because all these phones go down in the used market in terms of prices. So earlier this year, I think this phone probably cost like $60 to buy in the brand new market. You can probably pick this thing up for like $50. At a certain point, these phones stop depreciating in price tag, because they're still, good parts. People still want to pick them up, and nobody's going to sell this phone for $10 or $5 because of shipping and everything. So definitely when it comes down to it, you can pick this thing up for $50. So that doesn't really even have that big of an impact on this phone anymore. But the software is the biggest change. Now, I've been following iOS 15, which is the latest and greatest software on this phone, every single beta that's came out. I installed the first beta and pretty much every single beta after that. And what I can tell you is that this phone has a place in Apple's ecosystem, but it's definitely not a smooth performing software right now. There are a lot of stability issues. There's a lot of problems. And if you have an iPhone 6s, you can probably agree that, iOS 15, even on iOS 15.1, which is the latest version right now, still has a lot of issues. So with that, whole entire thing out of the way, I do want to let you know, I would still not recommend installing iOS 15 on this device. But even recently, iOS 14.8.1 just came out for the iPhone 6s, and that software version is much more stable on the iPhone 6s than on iOS 15. Luckily for me, I haven't had any boot loops, no crashes, nothing super crazy on my iPhone 6s that I had to completely factory reset it. On some other iPhones like my 7s and 7 Pluses, I had to kind of do that back in the day. But luckily, iOS 15 didn't really, have that, capability on my phone, which is good. And I do think iOS 15 has a lot of stuff within it. It has a lot of cool features, and I'm actually really happy about that. Doing things like, drag and dropping on an iPhone 6s, or even doing things, like so many things that iOS 15 brought. It wasn't a crazy big update. I do think iOS 14 was that massive update with widgets and stuff. And even that, seeing widgets on an iPhone 6s is so crazy because an iPhone 13 can pretty much do the same thing. So it's very interesting. And I love still getting software supports on the same day. The same day the iPhone 13 Pro Max gets an update is the same day the iPhone 6s gets an update as well. So I'm really, really happy about that. Now, some other things that pretty much stick out to me. The body, everyone knows, it's still the same 4.7 inch panel, aluminum frame, still feels extremely premium. But that design is still kind of relevant because Apple is still selling the iPhone SE 2, and from the looks of it, the iPhone SE 3 or the iPhone SE Plus, whatever they're going to call it, is almost going to be in that same body, in that same footprint as well as almost like the 6S. It's pretty much a 6S with a glass back on it. So that's going to be pretty interesting. In a way, this design from 2015 that stemmed from 2014 or 2014, that stemmed from 2014 is still supported and is still kind of going on, which is very, very interesting. So in a way, the 6S is outdated, but in another way, it's really not. Now, different things like the camera, obviously it's not that great anymore, 4K at 30 on the back, 720p on the front. I think most people know by now that this camera isn't amazing, but it's still kind of interesting to see the capability that this phone has. 4K at 30 on the back is very decent for a 2015 phone. This phone is over 6 years old now, and for it to still film in that that type of resolution is very, very interesting to me. But that's not everything. I think probably the worst thing about this phone right now is the battery life when compared to any other phone, even an iPhone SE2 that didn't even have that good of battery life when it first came out. Comparing that to the 6S, it's just really not fair. Luckily for us, the repairability of this phone is very high. So if you wanted to repair anything on this phone, it's pretty easy to do it. You don't really have to worry about too much stuff, and you can easily repair a majority of the things that are wrong with this phone. But unluckily for us, the max battery size is 15 milliamp hour battery, so you can go and repair it if you want to, but it's really not a great battery life at 100% capacity anyway. So what I will tell you is that is definitely not the one area I'm happy about, but it still turns on, it still powers on. The performance really isn't that bad on iOS 15, and although it's slower than iOS 14, I really do think that by the time of the end of this life cycle, so by the time the iPhone 6S is done getting software and it's like at the end of its life cycle, I do think iOS 15 is going to be kind of like an iOS 12. I think it's going to have a rocky start, but towards the end of it, Apple will have to continuously push out updates to it to fix all these issues. The 6S could potentially end on iOS 15. I didn't even think it was going to get iOS 15 in the beginning with. So for it to get this update, I'm really happy about it, but we're probably at the end of its life cycle. It's going to finish off up until June, and I do think it's going to get supplemental security updates after that, which is amazing. But as of right now, what I will tell you, I would really not recommend anybody to purchase an iPhone 6S in 2021 as of right now. But if you're still using this phone, I think that's kind of a testament of what Apple was able to do with this specific device. It wasn't a big upgrade from the iPhone 6 as people thought, but me personally, I think it did bring a lot of stuff to the table. It brought 4K capability on the back, it brought an extra gig of RAM, faster performing chipset, which is cool, and although it visually looked pretty much the same, we brought things like Force Touch on it, which is gone now, but it was still pretty cool. I think the smaller battery size wasn't a big thing about it, but regardless, this phone is still getting support. When you look at a phone like an iPhone 6 that came out a year before, that thing stopped getting support, I think in like 2018 or 2019, in iOS 12. We're in iOS 15 right now, and we are still getting software support on this phone. So the difference between these phones, it's not even fair. The 6S got so many more versions of software than the iPhone 6. So imagine being an iPhone 6 user in 2018 and 19 and 20 and 21 now, where this phone is still getting software support, but the iPhone 6 is not getting software support anymore. It's definitely super crazy to me. The iPhone 6S was also one of the least performing iPhones from Apple in recent times. So it's pretty crazy to see that Apple is still supporting this phone. So ultimately that pretty much covers it. That's pretty much how this phone holds up in the later part of 2021. I would love to hear your guys' opinion on this. Do you agree or disagree with me? Let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.